Okay. Are they going to have light? Hey, that's great. I can't see you now. We'd like to welcome you to the keynote address for the 71st National Square Dance Convention. Are you having a good time? Well, what I want to tell you, if you're having a good time, I'm John Cook, my wife Carolyn's sitting over here, we're the general chairman. If you're not having a good time, we're Tim and Sissy Teal from Texas. But we do want to welcome you to the keynote address. Mr. Tom Davis, Mr.? Anyway, Tom Davis is going to speak. Now, this guy has done so much. If I stood here and listed all of the things he has done, he wouldn't get to make his speech because I'd be up here forever. But Tom is one of the best callers I know. I apologize to all you other callers, but he has done so much for Carolyn and I in preparing for the convention and lead-up dances and everything. And he is our ceremonies chairman, so he's working for the convention. And he's got a really good speech here about making waves, some of the things we need to do to bring our hobby back to what it was. So I think you've heard enough of me, so now I'm going to bring you Mr. Tom Davis.
Well, good morning, everyone. How are you? The only thing I don't like about this is I can't see you. So if you're making faces or you're squinting your eyes or you're sleeping, I will find somebody to tell me what's going on, okay? But it's a pleasure and an honor to have been asked to do this speech. And really, it's not a speech as much as it is trying to motivate people to do what we need to do to bring square dancing back where it was. It'll never be where it was in the 70s and 80s, but you know what? We can grow. We can move forward, we can do things, we can try things, and we can change things to make it work. And the only way we're going to do this is we're all going to have to work together. And what I have done is basically listed out the things that we need to do, some of the things we're going to show you how to do, and then it's up to you to go out, deliver the message, and try to bring everything back home so we can get it done. That's the whole goal. I looked up the definition of a keynote, because I wasn't really sure. I've never done this before. I've been to a couple of them, but never really did it. A keynote is a prevailing tone or a central theme, typically one that's set or introduced at the beginning of a conference or a meeting or a convention. Well, you know, we're 2 days into this, and you know, it helped. It helped me realize where we were now, or where we were then and where we are now. Because we cannot continue on the road we're on, folks. Because if we don't change something, we are not going to be doing this in the next 4 to 5 years. So we're going to have to put our heads together. We're going to have to mindset the thing that we're going to have to move forward to be able to make things work. Let me ask you a question. Where is square dancing today? Where do you think square dancing is today? Where do you think square dancing has come since the pandemic? Where was square dancing before the pandemic? Those are the things that we've got to realize, and that's the basis we've got to work on. Where is square dancing going in the future? Well, folks, that's up to us. Not the callers, not the NEC. It's up to us as square dancers. We have leaders within the organization that will help guide us and direct us. But folks, you sitting out there are the ones that's going to make the change. You're the ones that's going to promote the change. You're the ones that's going to have to get us back on the road where we need to be able to be a strong organization in the future. Guys and girls, we can do it. But it's going to take each and every one of us to work hard, delegate, dedicate, and most often we're going to have to offer things for free. Because the money is the big thing today. That's what everybody talks about. Why are we where we are today? What brought us to this level of dancing today? And not the level of the dance itself, but the level of the attendance of the dances. Man, I could sit up here and spend the next 30 minutes naming all things that have affected our square dance programs. You know, when I started back in 1974, when I started dancing, there wasn't a lot of things then that we have today. We don't have all the electronic gadgets. We don't have all the access to movies, to shows, to different things. We don't have all that. Kids were not playing 10,000 sports, which parents had to shuffle the kids back and forth to and support. We didn't have those things, a lot of those things back then, but we do today. So the only way we're going to be able to turn this around, folks, is to change. And that's the number one thing that we've got to do. Why has square dancing continually declined over the past 10 to 15 years? Well, just exactly what I said. Things are changing. Everything changes. What was the cost of a gallon of gas back in 1978? What was the cost of a gallon of milk in 1972? What's the cost today? Things change. We've got to be able to change with the changes that are taking place. We cannot continue to look back and say, that's the way we did it before. That's the way we've always done it. That's why we're here today, folks, is because that's the attitude and the conception that we put in our minds that we cannot change that. But we're going to have to. Change, things change. Change is inevitable. How many times have you heard that? My dad always said there's two things that are for sure guaranteed in your life, and that's taxes and change. And folks, we've got to do the change. So how do we change? We change things. We go back and look at what put us here, and we look at what it's going to take us to the future. Our future success is looking at what we did in the past. Not reminiscing over what we did in the past, not making a lot of attitude about what we did in the past, but we got to take the past, we got to review it, we got to calculate it, we got to break it apart, dissect it. That's what's going to help us decide what we need to do in the future. Most all of us sitting in here, and I feel comfortable to say at least 99% of us took 30 to 35 weeks of square dance lessons. Am I right? We can't do that anymore, folks. It's not going to happen. Yeah, that's the way it used to be. That's the way it worked. That's what made you good dancers. But you're not going to be able to do it. We're going to have to find something to replace that. We're going to have to find the motivational attitude to be able to put that forward and make it work. Make it work in our favor and make it work for our activity. As you can tell, I'm not computer savvy. Lost my mouse. I think it was a rat. You know, the past told us what we did wrong. If we sit back and we look at the past, it'll tell us what we did wrong. And being a visionary that we all are, we can take that information that we learned of what we did wrong, we can calculate it, figure it out, discuss it, and make the changes that's going to cause us to move forward. And moving forward is our goal. Moving forward successfully, moving forward gaining attendance, moving forward making the activity strong. We don't have to have 30,000 dancers at a convention like we used to have in the 80s and late 70s. But man, it'd be nice to have 10, 15,000, wouldn't it? You know, it'd be nice to have 7, 8, 9, 10 squares at your square dance. It'd be nice to have 4 or 5 squares of students taking lessons. Those would be great things, wouldn't they? When I took lessons, our class had 22 squares of students in a couples club. Our couples club had 122 members, and we grew. Every dance we did, if you didn't get there early, number one, you couldn't find a parking place, and number two, you may not find a place on the floor. That's how big dances were back then. That was great. That was wonderful. Those were the times. Gas was cheap. Milk was cheap. Not today, and we're not going to have that today. So we have to take a look at reality and say, we've got to change to make this work. We've got to do the things that's going to bring more people into square dancing quicker and still be able to train them to be proficient in the activity of square dancing. So we got to look at a lot of different things. Let's take, for instance, let's picture we're out on a lake, and a good friend of mine and his wife are sitting out there that live on a lake. And you know, when that lake is smooth, clear, no waves, no interruptions, it's beautiful, right? But as long as that lake sits there like that, it begins to stagnate. The heat begins to build up on it, it begins to grow things, algae, bacteria. It's pretty, but it doesn't feel good. How do we get that lake back to where it's being aerified, where it's being purified? We have to make the water move. You have to create motion in the water to be able to make it work. Well, folks, that's what we got to do in square dancing. We're here today to figure out how we're going to make waves, to take that clear, perfect, smooth lake and make waves in it so that it works, so that it is good, so that it is clean, so you can get in it and swim. Well, we've got to make square dancing so we can get in it quicker, we can educate dancers faster, and we can move them forward and get our clubs back bigger than what they are today. So we all have to work together. Well, this never worked when I wanted it to work. There we go. It never does what I want it to do when I want it to do it. That's what my wife says about me. So, if we were to take a pebble and drop it in that smooth, unmoving water, what will happen? Well, that pebble will create a little wave. And those waves keep moving out. And as they move out, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, today, folks, we're going to drop a pebble. We're going to make the water move, and we're going to make our activity stronger. But again, it takes all of us to be able to do that. We have to embrace change, folks. We can't look at it as a deterrent. We have to look at it as a positive attitude of what we're going to do. We have to be able to tell people we can't do that any longer because it didn't work then, it ain't going to work now. We have to tell our clubs, we have to tell our activity leaders, we've got to figure out a way to make this work. Well, we've come up with several different programs over the years, and we've tried them, and it seems to work well. We're not all trying them. You know, this club may try it, this state may try it, but we've all got to do basically the same thing throughout this nation. Europe is very, very, very diligent in how they teach square dancing, how they work square dancing, and not only Europe, Japan is another prime example. All of our international countries are better at this than we are, and it came from here. And the reason they are is because they believe in it. They work hard at it. They adapt to the times to make it work. So we have to sit back, we have to look back, and we have to adapt to the times. We have to understand that the only way we're going to make this better is we're going to have to put a lot of work, a lot of hard time, and a lot of dedication into the program. There's a lot of you sitting out there right now that work tremendously hard to make this activity work. But you have to put in the hours. When you're working a 40-hour job in calling, it's tough. When you're working a 40-hour job and trying to be president of a club or a leader within the club to be able to make it work, it's hard. You know, our biggest work and our biggest help and dedication comes from the retirees, the people who have done their service for their regular job, and now some of them are dedicating their time to square dancing, and we appreciate that so much. We love each and every one of you, and we want you to continue to do what you're doing. But we've got to change and go in a different direction. So, what are our options? Well, first of all, we must learn from the past, and we must be able to plan for the future. This is the way that we have done it. It's what we hear all the time. This is how we used to do it. This is the way we did it back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We want to continue to do that. Well, you're going to continue to fail because it's not going to work. 40 weeks of lessons, folks, have got to become history because it's not going to continue. You know, we look at our commitments that we make. How hard is it to sit down and talk to a couple or a group and say, we will teach you how to square dance. We will help you. You enjoy it. It's fun. They know it's fun. They know it's enjoyable. And then you say, but we need your commitment for 30 weeks. 2 hours once a week, every week, for 30 weeks. And then they look at you and say, I don't have time. I can't commit to that kind of time. You know, doing festivals, doing conventions, doing weekends. We usually solicit people to sign up so we know when we're putting on a convention or when we're putting on some sort of festival, we're trying to work out a budget. We're trying to figure out how much money we're going to have to come in, whether we can or cannot do that or not. How many times have you sat down and said, well, I can't pay this right now. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to go or not. Well, when you're dealing with people on lessons, they have the same thing. You know, my kid plays basketball or soccer, football. You know, I can't do this. Or, you know, I still work on Mondays and Tuesdays. I have to work late, so I can't do this. But we have to find reasons why we can change our activity to meet their needs. And the biggest need that I see that we're going to have to shorten the amount of weeks of lessons to be able to get people in, get them educated, and get them out, and get them dancing. You get them dancing quicker, folks, your club multiplies faster, and guess what? You're making more money in your club. You're able to pay the bills. A quicker entry level, to me, is the only answer. That's the only thing that I see that we can really do to be able to make it work. How do you pay for a hall? How do you pay for a caller? How do you pay for advertising? How do you pay for a cure when you have 2 squares every week? How do you do a festival? How do you pay the exorbitant prices that these convention centers offer and everything else that goes with it when you have 200 or 300 people? You can't do it. You can do it once, bite the bullet and move on. But clubs are slowly, in our area alone, in the Ohio area, we have lost 5 to 6 clubs. Excuse me, simply because they can't pay the bills. They don't have any money in their treasury. Because they're running 2 squares, 1 square, some of them are, maybe 3 at the most. Some clubs are doing fairly well, making 4 or 5 squares, but you know what? When you pay a caller and a cure and a hall rent, our average is about 6 squares to break even. How many clubs out there do you know of that are drawing 6 squares every week that they dance? Not many, and if they are, they're doing great. But at home, we struggle with that. And I think most clubs throughout the United States and those states that are represented here do the same thing. I think you struggle with that. But we've got programs now that we're trying to work through and trying to get things started that will help maybe ease that pain, maybe extend that money out so that you can start paying more. And you can not have to worry about whether you're going to have to shut the doors next week because you're going to have enough money to pay people, to pay the rent, to pay the caller. I've helped a lot of clubs out in the past year just by reducing my fees. And some dances I've done at home for nothing, simply because the club couldn't afford to pay it. But I don't want to see people stop dancing. I don't want to see clubs fold. I don't want to see clubs not be here next year. We all have to bite the bullet, and we all have to give when give is needed. So those things we have to take in consideration. Let's talk about again, do you want to raise prices at the door? Because that's an option. Do you want to raise the dues of your members? That's an option. You can't hold specials. You can't hold special dancing activities if you don't have enough money to support one. So if you raise the prices, are other people going to stop coming? If you raise the dues, are you going to have members drop out? We have to look at all that, folks. We have to be able to calculate it and work it out. Unfortunately, like everything else that we do, anything that requires money is considered a business. These clubs are businesses. We're not having to show a profit, but we sure like to be able to pay the bills without having to pull money out of our pocket to do it, or ask somebody to take a cut because we can't pay you. So we got to think about all those things as we do it. All these conditions take a toll on a club. Clubs begin to fold. And you know, from my experience, and I'm not a know-it-all or anything like that, but from my experience, I can tell you that most clubs, when they fold, the dancers don't go back dancing with another club. Usually you lose not only the club itself, but you lose the dancers that were in it. If it was 5 couples, 10 couples, or 2 couples. In most cases, they don't continue to dance. So we have to look at all that. We have to be able to analyze everything that's there to make it work. So, what if we had a new idea? What would be a new idea that you could think of that we could work in that would make this work? Well, in my opinion, and I have not proficiently done this, I am a proponent of it. So far, I'm not against it. It's a plan. It's something we can try. SSD, and I'm sure you've heard it 100,000 times. SSD is social square dancing. Well, what is square dancing? Well, it's a social activity. So sort of falls hand in hand, wouldn't you think? Social square dancing, SSD. What is it about? It's about shortening the time that it takes an entry-level dancer to get in, go through lessons, and become a dancer. An educated, proficient dancer. 50 calls is on the list. It takes about 12 to 14 weeks, give or take, to teach the program. At the end of 12 and 14 weeks, what have you got? You've got a group of people that can dance a level. And that level is the SSD level. That level is the 50 calls you've taught them. Now, where do we run into problem? I hear it every day. I hear it from my dancers at home every day. I dance plus, and I'm not going to do anything but plus. You better wipe that out of your head because it ain't going to be here. It's not that plus is going to go away, but we've got to do something other than plus. Does plus pay the bills? Does plus bring more people in? Are your groups growing because there's plus? I don't think so. I don't think you're going to find a club that could actually come up here and say that my crowd has grown 50% because we have plus dances. We don't have mainstream dances. What was your foundation when you learned to dance? Mainstream. When I started square dancing in '74, there was no plus program. There was no plus program around. The program was called Midwestern Square Dance Program. And that's what we danced. And we had 50 to 60 calls that was used. We had one floor. When we did festivals, we had everybody on one floor. We didn't have people divided up into this hall, other than advanced and challenge dancers. Can you imagine what this festival would be like if we all sitting here danced one level and didn't have to divide up into 2 separate halls? What a great time that would be. What a great fellowship that would be. What a great activity that would be. Just like anything else in life, when you put something up where somebody's dancing one level, somebody's doing something, just like sports. When somebody's playing one level of sport, somebody's not, it becomes competition. Folks, square dancing is not a competition. Square dancing is not something we get out and compete with our friends and our family. Square dancing is a social activity. It's something we go do and relax. It's something we enjoy. You know, I played golf off and on during the summer times, and they said, Tom, you ought to take that up. It takes the pressure off your work. I had a job that was very stressful at the time. He said, go out and hit some balls. You'll enjoy it. I was never more stressed in my life than when I played golf. I actually came home and my wife and I didn't even get along because I played golf. We got along fine when I was just working. But square dancing is relaxing. This is my hobby. I don't do this professionally. This is my hobby. This is something I do to relax. You know, if I have a hard day at work, believe me, I don't take that to the dance with me. I enjoy going to the dance to get away from work. I enjoy going to the dance and calling and socializing and talking to people. It relaxes me. And that's the way it should be. It's not an activity where it should be work. The day this job becomes work, I'm out. I'll go back and pick up golf again. But I'm out. I'm done with it. And you as dancers probably feel the same way. When you start going to dances and you feel like you're struggling and you're working and you're just not happy with it, you leave, right? Well, we've got to keep it fun. We got to keep it interesting. We got to get people dancing. We've got to dance more together. So, the 50-week program, or the 50-call program, is a 12 to 14 week. Just like everything else is a continuous week for 12 to 14 weeks. Question I see in your all's faces, and I can't even see your faces. The question I see in your faces is, well, what do you do after 12, 14 weeks? You start another class. Right behind that. You take the people that you just taught, they're the angels. Now they're going to get reinforced for another 12 to 14 weeks. Then what do you do after that 28-week period? You're going to start another class. Well, what are you going to do with that group that was at the first 14 weeks? You're going to put them in a group and you're going to dance them every week, just like you dance in the class. So, how many squares you dancing? Let's just say, let's do a little math here. Let's say you start out with 3 squares of SSD students, just students, SSD students. You do the 12 to 14 weeks. You move them out. You graduate that group. You start another class. Well, word of mouth has gotten out through those dancers because they've had so much fun and they got into this so quickly and they've enjoyed dancing. Now maybe you go up to 4 squares of lesson groups. So you had to 3. Now you got 4, so that's 7. So now you do that 14 weeks. So now you got 7. Let's say the other groups, and everybody's been talking about it, how much fun it is. So the next set of lessons you got, let's say you have 5. Now you got 12 squares of people dancing. What were you dancing now? 2, 3? Not paying the bills? Now you got 12 squares dancing. You can pay the bills. You can pay the caller. You can do other things. You can socialize. You have more fun. You got more people to interact with. Folks, it's not about what level you dance. It's about what people you can get involved in this program. What people you can get involved in this activity. We cannot consistently sit here and do the things we're doing and make it work. We have to be able to do this. You have to, well, number one, you're going to have an educated caller that knows how to deal with the SSD program. When I first looked at it, I thought, our programs right now are divided up into basic and mainstream, plus advanced and challenge, and several levels to those. Mainstream and basics consist of 67 right now on the list, am I correct? We're talking about 50 calls on one program to get them to dance. There are some calls that are not on that list, but once you get the second set out and you got the third set coming in, then that dance that you're going to put together for the week, that's when you start adding those other calls in. And you progressively move those people forward. Now, if you want to, down the road, start a plus club and you want to teach them plus, that's your prerogative. Didn't say you couldn't do it, didn't say you can't do it. I'm just saying we've got to get a program that's foundational, that's a beginning program that everybody can dance. Then you grow off of it. You don't build a house by putting one layer of concrete blocks on the ground and building a 3-story house on it. You have to dig deep, you have to pour footers, you have to put a foundation in, and you have to make sure it's strong enough to be able to hold the house. Folks, we have to make sure the new dancers we're going to put out, we have to make sure every dancer that we educate, we got to make sure every person that comes in there is educated and has a strong foundation of the cause and the activity. That's what makes us good dancers. That's what makes our activity strong. That's what keeps us going. That's what pays the bills for the clubs. The more we work, the harder we work, I promise you, the better you'll be. You've got to consider the change. You've got to consider the attitude of your club, of your individuals, of your members. You're going to get, I'm not doing it. That's not right. I'm not going to do it. You got to do it. You got to ignore those that say that, and you got to move forward. If you want to be here in 5 years, and I would love to see this auditorium, if we were to come back here 5 years from now, I'd love to see this auditorium full. And it could be if we work hard and we do the right things. Nobody says that the SSD program is the program that will make it happen, that we can start with to see what it does, try it, and find out, yeah, is it going to work? It may fall flat on its face. But how are you going to know? Used to have a guy I worked for used to tell me, he says, you don't know what you look like till you take a picture. And that's true, because we don't know what we look like sitting here right now until we take a picture of our activity and then look at it and compare it to where we were then and where we're going to go. And where we're going to go is the most important thing. We've got to be able to move forward. The SSD program is just a starting point. There's a starting point that we've got to try. Folks, we've got to be able to commit to work with something new and try to make it work. We could all sit back and say, well, we tried this, we tried that. I remember trying different programs in the last 10 years. But I can't do it in Ohio, and nobody does it in Indiana or Kentucky or West Virginia or California. We all have to do it. Noah Sigmund is probably the first one that really got my attention with the SSD program. Jerry Story, God rest his soul, is the one that put it together. And I'm not up here speaking for Jerry, and I'm not saying that Jerry did everything. He's the one that got everybody thinking. Noah Sigmund instituted it up in the Wisconsin area, Minnesota area, and he's doing good. Scott Brown and Sean Brown out of the West Virginia area, Pennsylvania area, is working the program. They've got 3 strong clubs that are working with the SSD program. We have, I think, roughly 2 to 3 squares of those dancers here this weekend. Buddy Weaver out of California has put out a lot of publications on the SSD program. He's an advocate of it, but like the rest of us, we know that we've got to try it. We know that the only way we're going to fail is to try it. You don't know what you're going to do until you actually try something. And folks, we've got to try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll come back to something else. We'll say, well, let's try this. We're not going to get any better if we don't try something, if we don't try to work to make the change. We have to make the change. That's the only way we're going to do it. Economics 101 says if you make $10, spend $5, you got $5 left. If you make $20 and spend $200, you're $180 in the hole. Folks, a lot of these clubs are operating in a hole. I know several times I've been paid for dances out of dancers' pockets, not by the clubs. Those dancers are determined, dedicated individuals who, like me, do not want to see clubs fold. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen 6 months from now. But I promise you, if we all got together and we got with our clubs, we got with our associations, our callers associations, our dance associations throughout the United States, and we implemented this program the first day of July, and we all tried hard to make it work. I can't promise you success, but I can promise you an effort was made. I can promise you that things will attempt to get better. You'll see attitudes change. And I think you'll see the program change. I can't make a change. Caller Lab can't make a change. ACA can't make a change. NEC can't make a change. Each one of you sitting out there and all the other square dancers involved in the United States and across the world can make a change. We have to work in unity, folks. We have to work together. We have to stop looking at each other and saying, it ain't gonna work. How do you know? Have you tried? Will you try? Will you help? All the years that you put into square dancing, are you gonna throw it away? Illness is one thing. not being able to dance because of an illness or because of any type of health reason is fine. But when you quit square dancing because the club folded, that's not right. We can't do that. We have to keep moving forward. In closing, I say that we have a dedication, we have the determination, we have the intelligence, and we have the wherewithal to be able to make this work. The boys and girls, we all got to work together. We got to stop looking back. We got to start looking forward. We got to do what we need to do to make it work. The old saying is, it is what it is. Well, folks, right now it is what it is. It's not going to get any better until we make it better. And folks, square dancers are smart. They're strong, dedicated individuals. I trust that they will do the right thing. I hope I have enlightened you on where we're going to go, how we want to do it. There's a lot of questions about the SSD program that people have. I'm not an expert on it. I like it. Will it work in my group? I don't know. I'm going to find out this fall because I'm starting classes this fall. That's what I'm teaching. And the club that I'm teaching for, maybe some of the members sitting here, they don't know it yet, but we're going to do it. Okay? I may not have a job next week, but that's okay. Anyway, they know. You know, you got to try it, folks. I've been doing this for 45 years. I've been in the heyday of it. I've been on the bottom loop. But you know what? And excuse me for introducing Christianity to this, but when God wants us to look at ourselves and put us back, He takes us to our lowest point in our life. Folks, we're at the lowest point in square dancing. The only way we've got to go is up. And we're going to do it. The point of this speech today is, here's the change. We've got to change. We've got to make a change. Change is inevitable. It's in your hands. It's in my hands. We've got to make it done. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all so much. I wish you the best. Thanks for being here for the 71st National Square Dance Convention. We hope you enjoyed the city of Evansville. And if there's any questions you have, I'll be around to answer for you. God bless each and every one of you, and thank you so much for being here today.